Miskin Gilakas Laki Hilako. Nugam Kaslas, Gag Laka Musma Zawadeno. Good day, loved ones. My traditional name is Kaslas from the Musqueam tribe and Zawadeno First Nations, the 4 tribes. My English name is Alex Nelson, and currently residing in Victoria. And here, of course, is my little welcome to Grand Central Station. We've got a wonderful home setting that we have here. It's more than just a house, it's a home. And so what I'm here to illustrate, and through our big house in our home territories, is the beliefs, the practices, rituals, teachings, and purpose of life. And in this case, I'm going to be using the 4 corners of a big house. And this will illustrate the stages and ages of life. And ultimately, it's to tell the story about retirement and elders. And so I'll start in the beginning. Everything has a creation story, has a beginning. And I also want to point out that in the back, there's usually a screen that is put up, and it signifies our mythical world, our other world. And so when dance and performances happen in a big house, that's where we come out of. And it signifies our connection to Mother Earth, the mythical world, the spiritual world. And so when we first come out, we make a turn, and it tells the audience and the people that you are back. And at this point, it's a birth. It's a beginning. And so at this stage, as we know the expectations of birth, you open your eyes and you have your parents, mom, dad, in the arms, security of family and community that is going to be upheld here. And the dance itself is a performance of life. It's to remind the people that you are alive and well, and you've come back to demonstrate to them of who you are. And so at this stage is the beginning. And I was born in a place called Alert Bay, but I'm originally from a village called Kinkum Inlet, and there's a neighboring village called Guilford Island. And those are the 2 locations that come into play regarding this particular journey. And as I journey into, as a 6-year-old, I journey in from the village, and that's where I experience all the love and care, the communal and the family life. And then you get attuned to, you get grounded, you get defined by your surroundings of who you are, the river, the mountains, the forest, the animals, and a way of life that comes with this. And there's a wonderful beauty of this that starts to be there, and it defines my foundation of who I am, where I come from. And I reach this one corner, and by this time I'm age 6. I make a turn to recognize and look back on a history that I've just come from. And there again, I've described it as I was walking towards you. And so I then come to this point, and there's life changes, definite life changes that have happened, that are happening. From a wonderful village, I end up in an institute called a residential school. And that's where things changed drastically for my journey. So I'm at this stage, and I'm in residential school for 7 years. And so this next stretch becomes my teenage years. So at the age of 14, I reach this stage, and then I get sent further away from home into what they call a boarding home program. And I get sent to a place called Mission. And the residential school that I attended is Alert Bay, St. Michael's Residential School. And then I make my journey here. And then my youthful years, I become this teenager in the Fraser Valley. And on occasion, I was fortunate to come home to my village and to my people, but not as often as I would like. And then I continue my journey here from an education point of view. I make my turn. And by that time, I've come from high school, I've graduated, I'm at university, I'm a now adult and accept responsibilities that are placed on me. And this is where I meet my wife and the family begins to be sprouted. And so at this point, I become a family person and we moved to Victoria. And I guess in the past 25 years, 40 years, we've been in Victoria. So I make my turn here. And so now we have from the youth, an infant, to a young boy, making a turn to the young teenage world and becoming a young adult. I then journey to this point here where I look back and I see family. I see the development of being grandparents, grandchildren, employment base, soundly relocated. And at this point is the third stage. I become this practicing elder and I've made my turn and I look back to see where I've come from. And to illustrate the four corners is what I'm trying to profile here. And now to speak to the project that I'm involved in, it's talking about elders and retirement. And so it's this last stretch that in my mind, this particular question is research makes reference to. It's this final stretch, as it were. And so to help me answer the question of retirement, I then look back to each of the corners to ask the question, how do I understand retirement? How do I understand what's going to be required to retire? Besides daily life experiences, skills, and on and on. And the world of economy comes into play. Employment, salary dollars, work, benefit plans, and what's in place and what's not in place. So those become sort of the questions I now being triggered to help answer as far as a journey. So I want to go back to the beginning. As a young boy in an isolated village, as young children, we don't ask those questions. We just enjoy what's been given us and what's presented us. And there are occasions as a young boy we traveled to a place called Alert Bay. And there's between Alert Bay and the two villages that I make reference to, there's a place called Echo Bay and Simoon. And they were general stores. And of course, what was there? Well, candy and pop and all those youthful things that we totally enjoyed. And so that's where we got treated to those kind of, I guess, lifestyles of the day. And of course, we had clothing. And you just don't ask questions. You just accept what's been offered. So the concept of money was never really harped on, never really taught in its own way. The term investment and future planning was never in my realm as a young boy. Then I make my way to that critical corner there where the residential school is now introduced. And I'm now away from the village and all the teachings that came from there. And that's where I start to get a little bit more aware of, I guess, the world of finances and money. But I also recognize that the teachings, or the lack of teachings, of appreciating the value of money came from the living conditions in residential school. Because we were given accommodations, food, and a roof over your head, and anything that we needed was provided you. So we didn't know the cost of buying clothes, we didn't know the cost of buying food, we don't know the cost of rental of accommodations. And so to connect money to the value of what its purpose is was not there for in residential school. It was after that, or during residential school though, I need to say that if we were lucky, we were left some money from our parents and other means. And I did get a small job in a day school, and I helped a janitor, and he would pay me 10 cents or whatever amount he gave me. And of course, I then used that amount to help buy candy or whatever there was. And so the concept of money and spending started to emerge at that stage, but nothing significant. It wasn't until I left Alert Bay and we were sent on a boarding home program to a place called Mission City. That's where the budgeting and financial, concepts started to emerge in my life. And it deepened even more when I became a university student, a older teenager, and I engage in all those sideline activities of life, and which now cost money. And summertimes I did get jobs and good work, so I started to learn more concepts of spending, saving, but there's no planning as such in any of that I really picked up. It wasn't until I come to that corner where I can now classify as an older teenager and young adult, and I get married. And lo and behold, I meet a wonderful woman called my wife, Nella, and she's the financial person. And she starts to teach me, and I have a lot of teaching, and still teaching me, about finances and investments. So this journey between that corner and this was the strongest teaching of expenses, a lifestyle, and I came to understand that you needed to pay for food, accommodations, transportation, and all those necessities of life equaled money, and you needed to get it from somewhere. And of course, the world of employment. And I've been very fortunate not to be unemployed for a given length of time to hamper that. So the work ethics was there. This making money helped, but it wasn't until halfway through there I was really fortunate to lead the North American Indigenous Games in 1997, and that's when a big wad of money came my way. I can step back a bit. When I was a commercial fisherman, money was so lucrative, but money came in, money went out just as fast as it came in. So there again, the notion of saving and planning wasn't in my realm. It was in my wife's realm. So there was one good fishing season that happened, and I had some savings, and it was my wife's astuteness to say we need to invest in a home, and that's when we started to become a homeowner. But anyway, there again, my credit goes to my wife as far as that planning. And so we marched back on to the 1997 Indigenous Games, and I had a pretty healthy salary at that point, and that's where the notion of investment, planning, retirement starts to come into play. And so I look back on those experiences, and I found it really difficult to find a path to where someone could sit me down to explain to me the work world in its financial way. And today I now understand the old age pension plan, the Canada pension plan, and a retirement savings plan. And that was never in my realm until I got close to this point. And that's late in the game now. I'm 69, and to be prepared for a retirement, I admit I'm not fully prepared in its good way. But I look back on, I guess, the process of learning what expenses accompany life as you're marching along. So now we're at this point of this research where those questions are now being asked. what happened here. And so as I make my journey to, I guess, this final stretch, the hope and dreams and aspirations is I can still live comfortably, march forward and walk comfortably from this point to the final point. And that's the big question right now. Is it going to be comfortable? And so right now, I guess, because I help pay for the Canada Pension Plan, it does help the financial aspects. The old age pension plan is there. But I came to understand also, though, that a lot of our people, because we're living off reserve, we pay the CCP. But those that lived on reserve volunteered the advice, I guess, to pay into a CCP. So now individuals of my age group are not gaining anything from the Canada Pension Plan because they hadn't put anything into it. And in my mind, that was the lack of understanding the total economic systems of life. So now my question to me again is, did I have enough contributions to that process? Old age pension is there. And then have I saved enough to help me with a retirement? And there again, I give my wife credit to identify finance managers to help that process. So now as I make my final journey here, my question is, I look back and I says, was that a good journey? Was that a right journey? And was there a plan for retirement? And to be honest, for myself personally, there is no plan in a specific sense. In my mind, in my heart, my wife's heart and mind, there's a plan. But for me, I need to admit, I do not have that plan. And so with that, I'm at this point again, and I make this turn. I'm ready to go to the other world, but I also remind myself that I'm not leaving. I'm just saying I will be back. So those are the teachings of the Four Corners, and I've tried to illustrate it through the ages and the stages of life, and then zooming in on the concept of economies and lifestyles. And I hope I have tried to capture as much as I could in the brief moment that we've had here. And so as I continue to engage in our big house ceremonies, I just learn more and more and more, and I look at my personal life experiences, and this is where I start to apply some of those disciplines and teachings and values, using the Four Corners to help me understand, where did I come from? Where did I come from? We all have a beginning, and it's all circular. We keep going round and round. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to share the Four Corners, and look forward to how we can build on this. Back to Grand Central Station.